Where British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is reportedly bracing himself for several more fines over COVID-19 lockdown breaches. And he's been hit already by the first ministerial resignation. Justice Minister Lord Wolfson resigned just a day after the Prime Minister and Chancellor received a fine for breaking lockdown rules. As he quit, Lord Wolfson criticised the official response to repeated rule breaking, said that the Prime Minister's actions were inconsistent with the rule of law, and called into question the UK's ability to press for democracy and the rule of law abroad as a result. Here's what some people in London make of it all.
Seem to be very much point in having a code if you're not going to abide by the code. It's as simple as that, you know. People have an obligation, if they're going to sit in positions of power, authority, to play by the rules. There are certainly some very specific rules about what you can and can't do. Those rules have been broken and there are consequences. Why is it that those consequences don't appear to matter very much when you apply them to Richie, Carrie, Boris?
Well, our London correspondent Chris Jones joins me live now. Chris, what therefore is next for the Prime Minister?
Well, this is a rather big moment for Prime Minister Boris Johnson and his government. You'd be forgiven really for never having heard of Lord David Wolfson, the Justice Minister, but his resignation is really a big signifier of how some of those within the Conservative Party are really feeling about this Partygate scandal and the fines that both Mr Johnson and Mr Sunak, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, have accumulated. And Lord David Wolfson has been really critical of both of those, and he penned in his resignation letter that he said it's not just a question of what's happened in Downing Street or your own conduct, it's also, and perhaps more so, the official response to what took place. That's a statement really agreed with by the opposition Labour Party, and their leader, Sir Keir Starmer, has called multiple times for both of their resignations. Neither have done so. In fact, they've only apologised, said they've paid the fines, and say they want to continue on with the job. But with rumours that there could be more fines for Mr Johnson, whether he'll be allowed to kind of stay on in the job and do that work really remains to be seen.
And what comes next then? We have local elections coming up, which could play a role here in Boris Johnson's future?
Yeah, well, we've also had just a deal made with the UK, with Rwanda, to send people who came to the UK illegally there. That's 4,000 miles away. That's a £120 million deal. And people have been heavily critical of that move, and they've described it as unethical and unworkable. But you're right in saying that the local elections are coming up, and all of this criticism is really a massive test for Prime Minister Boris Johnson and the Conservative government. Tobias Ellwood, he's a senior minister for the Conservative Party. He's essentially said that if those local elections in May are catastrophic for the Conservative Party, Mr Johnson should really step aside and put the party first, essentially calling for a vote of no confidence. Now, that hasn't been put in place just yet, but the leadership of Boris Johnson and also the role of Rishi Sunak really do hang in the balance right now.
Thanks, Chris. And worth pointing out that Parliament here in the UK is on recess at the moment, so constituency MPs are all away from Westminster, which might give Boris Johnson some time. But they get back next week, and Boris Johnson has said that he will go to Parliament and try and set the record straight, given some of his previous comments in the House of Commons, which the opposition parties say mean that he misled Parliament, which would potentially be a resignation issue. Boris Johnson's allies say he was speaking in good faith and didn't know that he was effectively giving parliamentarians the wrong information in the House of Commons. So next week in Westminster here in London, very interesting indeed.